Hello, my name is Rickard, and in this tutorial, I'm going to show you how to add lightning to a scene using optics by Boris effects. This video is sponsored by Boris FX. They're a visual effects software creator who recently put out a program called Optics. And Optics is a suite of filters that you can use either as a plugin in Photoshop or through Lightroom or as a standalone program. There's more than 100 different filters in there that you can use, and one of my favorites is the lightning one. And in this, I'm going to show you how to use optics to add lightning to your scene. Now, if you want to get the optics plugin, you can do that. I have a link in the description of this video. You can get a trial if you just want to check it out and follow along this video. Or if you want to purchase it, you can use the discount code nuclei-25. That'll give you a 25% discount, which you're not going to find in many other places. Finally, if you want to download the assets that I use in this video, you can do that in the link in the description as well. In there, I also include the lightning generated out of optics if you want to just use that in your Photoshop composite. All right, with all that, let's get started. All right, let's go to File, Open, and I'm going to open this image that I downloaded from Unsplash. And this is an image, and what I want to do is I want to add a lightning bolt coming from this kind of highlight right here down to about the middle of the road right there, and we're going to use optics to do that. Now, the first thing I would usually do is make a copy of this and then run optics, but I'm going to show you a little trick toward the end of this video if you forget to do that. All right, so let's go to Filter, Boris Effects, Optics. And the first thing I want to do, let's go ahead and reset this. This button here resets. When you open Optics, whatever your last filter set will be loaded. So clicking this little button here will reset it. All right, so first filter is this top one here. This little edit button shows me that it's the active filter. And what I want to do first is make this darker so it looks a little bit more like a nighttime down here. So to do that, I'm going to go here and search for night and select the day for night filter. And this filter basically makes your image look like it's nighttime. And there's various strengths in the presets. You can also go to the parameters and adjust things there, but I'm just going to go ahead and use day for night preset 4. Now, I primarily want this to be affecting the bottom, not so much the sky up here. So we're going to add a mask. This button here adds a mask. You have various options for adding a mask. What I'm going to use is the path. So once I've clicked on it, your cursor doesn't change, which is a little bit confusing, but you have activated the tool, and to use it, you're going to click, basically click around the area that you want. Now you'll notice every time I click, my cursor changes to a little stopwatch. Be careful that you don't move your mouse in the midst of that stopwatch, depending on how slow or fast your computer is. This applies when moving it as well. All right, so that looks good. Now I want to feather this edge, so I'm going to go here and just turn on some feathering. And you'll notice it's feathering in the middle now, so it's feathering between, but I kind of want to feather it into the clouds, not into my sky. I can adjust that here, make it feather outside. So now it's feathering outside. This line here is at 100% and the feather is going out, and I can adjust the amount of feathering there. So that looks pretty good. Next thing I want to do is mask out where the lightning bolt is going to hit the ground here, because that should be lighter. So what I can do is add a second mask. So we're going to go here. I'm going to use a path again. And for this one, we're just going to go here like so. And you'll notice that it has made no difference to my image, and that's because right now this combines the two masks, and what I wanted to do is I wanted to subtract from the mask. So there you can see it's now subtracting from this mask here. Let's turn on some feathering. And with the feathering turned on, I can adjust this a little bit more. And I think that looks pretty good. Next thing we're going to do is just add a curves layer to make the sky darker and also kind of match this blue tone that we've added to the rest of the image. So to add another filter, I'm going to click on this icon here. And then under color, we're going to grab the curves filter here. Just going to make this darker. And I'm not worrying about what it's doing here because I'm going to mask this out. So I'm just looking at what it's doing to the clouds. I want them to be darker, so something like this. And in order to make them bluer, I'll take down the red, add some cyan, and then add a bit of blue. And let's go back to RGB, make it just a little bit darker. So something like that. Now, obviously it's making this bottom area too dark, so we'll add a mask. And in this case, I'm just going to use a gradient mask. And here you can see it's showing the filter on the top and going less to the bottom. You can switch that here, but from the top is what we want. These little things here allow you to adjust the starting point of your mask. So I want it to start right about there, and I want it to come down to about here, something like that. That looks pretty good. All right, next I want to add a lens flare where the lightning is going to hit the ground. So let's go ahead and add one more. We're going to go to light and select lens flare. And I want kind of a very horizontal lens flare. So let's look through the presets and find one that should work. Maybe something like this, although this is a little colorful, but we can always adjust that. So let's go ahead and select this one. And I'm going to move it down so that the spot is where my lightning is hitting, right about there. I can also make this smaller. And you'll notice here that we have these purple caustics. I don't want those, so if I go to my parameters, I can just turn off the brightness of the other, and that'll turn those off. So that looks pretty good. Next, I'm going to add the actual lightning. Actually, one more step. Before we add the lightning, I want to add the highlights into the cloud area here. So let's go ahead and add one more layer. And I'm going to go to color, go to curves again. And I really want to blow out those highlight areas. So something like this. Maybe kind of give it an S curve so that the clouds around it remain a little dark. So something like this. And now I want to make it only affect this area here where the lightning is going to come out. So let's go ahead and add another path mask. We'll do that just kind of in this area here. Like so. Let's feather that. And if you don't want to see the points while you're adjusting feather, you can turn those off here. And if you don't want to see the mask at all, you can click on this and that'll turn off the mask. Unfortunately, there is no way to turn off this little line as you're adjusting things. So hopefully in a future update, they will make that an option. All right, now we're ready to add the lightning bolt. So let's go ahead and add another filter. We're going to go to the render tab and select S-Zap. And right away you can see with the default here, it's creating a really nice lightning bolt. And these bigger control points are the ones that are currently active, so they determine where this lightning is going. I want these 2 points here and here, and then this one I can adjust the angle. Now you'll notice that there are additional points right now. Those are inactive, but to activate them, all I have to do is click and drag and they become an active control point. And something like this looks pretty nice. And now we're going to make some adjustments. So let's go to parameters here. The first thing I want to do is increase the number of bolts to 2. And I want the bolt width to be just a little bit thicker. And I want the branchiness to maybe be a little bit more. And then the branch length to be a little bit longer. And as you adjust the branch length, you'll notice that your branchiness may be a little bit too much. So we can take that down like so. And I want the glow to be a little bit less purple. So I'm just going to move this over a little bit like so. All right, now I don't particularly like the way these 2 bolts are collapsing on top of each other. So if you go to this random seed here and drag this, you'll get basically a random generator that gives you all manner of different lightning bolt shapes and combinations. And as I'm doing this, I think my branchiness is still a little bit too much. So I'm going to take that down just a little and also decrease the angle just a bit. And then we'll keep turning this. Ooh, that one looks really nice. Okay, so I like the main bolts here. I may just adjust my branchiness here. But I think that looks pretty good, pretty realistic. I think maybe the branch length is a bit too much. Maybe something like this. And now that I've adjusted it, I kind of want to see other options. So let's keep going. We'll just keep dragging this. And this curve amplitude here adjusts how stringent it is sticking to your curve. So I want to vary that a little bit as well. Ooh, that's pretty nice. Okay, that looks like a pretty strong lightning bolt there. Oops. Okay, pretty happy with that. Next, what we're going to do is add a lens flare here where the lightning is coming from. So let's go ahead and add another filter here. We're going to go to light and select lens flare again. This one I want to be kind of a blue glow almost. So I don't want something with a lot of spikes, but I will show you how to turn those spikes off. So first let's look just for one that kind of gives me the look I want. Possibly this one, but I feel like I need a stronger hotspot. Actually, the first one we looked at was pretty nice. Let's grab this one. And I'm going to move it to where I want it, and we'll adjust the size of it to something like that. And then I'm going to go to parameters and take down the other. And then here's the ray brightness. I can take that all the way down or just leave a hint of it. But I don't want the ray to go out so much. So I'm going to take down the ray length to something like that. And then the whole thing I'm just going to take down further and maybe take down the brightness a little bit like so. And then I'm going to give the whole thing a bit of a blue tone, similar to the color I gave the lightning. So there you go. That looks a little more consistent there. And then the next thing I want to do is give the whole thing a color grade. So we'll go ahead and click on this again. For color grades, I really like using this film stocks Just gives you immediate color grades with noise and various other effects. So we'll just kind of go through, look for one that looks cool. And I kind of like the way this looks, although the effect is too strong. So if I go to parameters, I can always adjust the amount that it's affecting. So maybe I want it just about 40%. So we'll put it at 40. And we can always turn this on and off with this little lightning bolt. And I like that. I like that. It's not losing too much of my shadows, but it is giving it all just a nice tone. Now, as I've done this, I do feel like the light area around the lightning bolt needs to be brighter. So I can always go back here, select this curves, activate it, and then adjust it some more. So we'll make it a little bit brighter than it was, kind of get a sense of that strong light coming from the lightning bolt. So something like that. And then let's go back up, reactivate this top layer. That looks better to me. Okay, lastly, I want to add a little bit of dust that's being lit by the lightning. So we're going to do a little trick here, and that is add a layer here. I'm going to go to my search, and I already have night. What I'm going to do is use night sky, and what that's going to do is it's going to add a whole bunch of stars to my scene, and we're going to turn these stars into dust. So obviously we don't want the glare from the stars, so we're going to take the glare brightness and turn that to 0. So now we just have dust specks, and we'll also take the streaks and turn the brightness of those to 0. So now this looks more just like dust in the air, and I really just want the dust where kind of right around this and mostly down here where that light is hitting. So just these tiny little dots. Let's see, maybe we want it just a touch brighter. Yeah, I like these. They give something to kind of the atmosphere of the image. But obviously I don't want it all over. So again, let's go ahead and add a path mask. And I'm just going to kind of do something like this so that they're just being added toward the bottom of this, like so. So now we kind of get this impression that the dust is being lit by this lightning bolt, dust in the air. All right, and finally, I'm just going to add a little bit of a vignette. So let's go ahead and add one last one. We'll type in vignettes here. There it is. And this is just going to kind of focus the attention to our lightning bolt and where it's hitting on the ground. Something like this. And I don't want it quite so strong, so we can go under parameters and just go to the opacity and take that down a bit. Something like that looks quite nice. All right, and if you want to see a before and after, this button here does that. Click on this, before, after. I don't want to see these controllers here, so I can just turn those off here. And now I can get a better view of before and after. I think we probably have a little bit too much dust up here. So let's go to this mask, make sure we activate that filter. We'll select this mask. And why aren't we seeing it? Oh, we need to turn that on too. All right, so let's just drag these points down so we don't have the dust coming so far up into the sky, because really the dust is being kicked up off the ground in our imaginary scene here. And let's go back to this one, see how that looks. Yeah, that's better. So now we just have the dust right in that spot. That's kind of where I want it. All right, So that finishes it. If you want to save these settings to use in a separate composite or project, you can go to here and go to Save Setup, and we can call this Lightning. And you can put it where you want. I'll go ahead and put it in the assets of this tutorial, so you can download it, check out my setup, and either copy it or change it. So let's go ahead and hit save. That's going to save a file called lightning.optics. You can go here and go open setup and then just open that file. Also, you'll see your recent setups in here. So to apply this, I'm going to hit the gear here. And voila. Now, as you can see, it's applied it to my background. I don't want that. I want to retain my background. So what I can do is simply undo, make a copy of this layer, and then if I go to filter, rather than going down here, I'm going to select this. And what this will do is it'll run your last filter with all the settings of that filter. So here you can see it's going to open up optics in the background, run it again, and now I have it on a separate layer. So if you do use optics, find that you've done all this work but didn't do it on a new layer, just do that. Revert, go back, make a copy of your layer, and then go up here and just run it from here rather than down here. So there you have it. That's how you can add lightning in optics. Now the last thing I want to show you is a different workflow, and that's to generate your effect in optics and then composite it in Photoshop. And we're going to do this relatively quickly because this wasn't the purpose of this tutorial. But for those of you who like to keep your workflow in Photoshop like me, this is the way I would do it. And I'm going to go through this real quickly. In this case, I could, rather than making a copy, I can just make a new layer, fill it with black, and then go to Filter, Optics. It's going to run it again. Oops, I need to fill it with black first, which I'll do by holding Option or Alt and Delete or Backspace. Now I'm going to run it. Now the one issue with this is it's obviously not going to apply any of the color corrections, but it does give you the primary effects that you need. I can put this on screen and then use Photoshop to make my background similar to the way this background is. So in this case, I would first run a curve layer, just pull that down to kind of make the night sky scene or the night scene. Obviously want this to be way more cyan-y blue, so we'll take some red. And in this case, I'm not looking at the clouds, I'm just looking at this bottom area. Pump a little bit of the blue there. I want this gone, so I'm going to go back to my RGB and just pull down that so that this area here this area here isn't so bright. So we'll just pull that down and then also pull the red down a little bit there. And maybe even the green so it's not so cyan. Something like that. And then back to my RGB. I want this to be even darker, so we'll pull this down something like this. And then we can just use some masks in Photoshop. First I'll do a elliptical marquee. Hold down Option so it's building it from the center, and we're just going to do this kind of area right there. Now I want to feather this. To do that, I can go to my quick mask. I'm doing this all pretty quick, by the way, because the primary purpose of this was to show you how to use optics, but you might learn something here from me quickly doing this in Photoshop. Yeah, something like that. I'm going to hit Q or just click on this, and then with my mask selected, I'm going to fill that with black, so Option Delete. There you go, I have that highlight, and I also want to get it out of the sky here. So again, I can do the same trick, make a real quick lasso selection here, hit Q, go to Filter. I can even run my Gaussian blur again, something like that looks good. And then with a gradient, we use foreground to transparent there with my mask selected and black as my foreground color. Just kind of run this down like that. There you go. All right. And then I want this guy to be darker blue, kind of more to match this. So what I can do is just copy this layer, holding Option, drag it up, invert my mask with Command I, and then I'm going to Option click on the mask so I can see it. And I want to get rid of this bottom part. So with my gradient, I'll just get rid of that. So now this is just applying to the clouds. And I can either adjust this, but I can also just take down the opacity until it's about where I want. So right about there. And the nice thing about doing this in Photoshop is I can also add a mask here so I'm not double curving this part. So we'll do this, hit Q again to go into quick mask, blur, Gaussian blur. Maybe increase it just a little bit, something like this. And then with my mask selected, fill that with black. Pretty good. Actually, I'm going to keep my selection there and then add another curve to make it even brighter and bluer. Taking red away gives you cyan, and then blue obviously gives you blue. And then dragging this changes your white point. Now my white point doesn't really start until there, so you're not seeing much of a change. But that looks pretty nice. And then I can do kind of a color grade on top of the whole thing. To do that, I'm going to use a gradient map, and I'm just going to use kind of a purpley blue to cyan blue gradient map. So maybe something like this. It's going to be too strong, but we're going to adjust it. We'll put this on soft light, and then in here, I'm going to select this kind of purpley blue. I want to push that a little bit more toward a true blue and make it less saturated. And I don't want it to affect the luminosity so much. So try to get it to where it's similar to a neutral gray in tone. And then this one here, I want to be a little bit more cyan-y. Probably something like that. And then finally, we can do the same kind of vignette that we did with our other image. To do that, I'll create an elliptical marquee. You can see that a lot of the procedures that you're doing in optics are basically the same thing as you're doing in Photoshop with very similar tools. So if you master Photoshop, working out how to do various tricks and effects in optics become a lot easier. So there you go. Then we'll do our quick mask trick to feather this. Like so. Hit Q again. I'm going to invert my selection. And then we can add a curve. So for just a normal vignette, I drag down the top. If you want more of a contrasty vignette, drag down the middle. So something like that. And we're getting a similar effect in Photoshop. The nice thing about this is I have this as its own layer. I can move it around if I want my lightning bolt to come from here instead. I have that option. It's not all embedded in a single layer like it is with optics. So there you have it. That's how you can add lightning to your scene using Optics by Boris FX. Again, if you want to purchase the plugin, use the discount code nuclei-25. That'll give you a 25% discount. And that code works whether you get the annual subscription, the monthly subscription, or you get the standalone license. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a like, leave a comment, subscribe to my channel, turn on notifications, do all that good stuff that you do for the content creators that you enjoy. And here are some other videos that you can check out. and I will see you next time.